On today's episode of Locked On Wilds, are we getting concerned about Eriksson Ek's injuries, or can we write this past season off as a one-off?
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we will evaluate the 2024-2025 season for Eriksson Ek. We'll look at his numbers taking a bit of a dip as he dealt with injuries throughout the season, where his contract stands as far as continuing to be a bargain, or are we starting to see that surplus start to shrink a little bit? My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wilds, host of Seth on Sports, and credentialed media member. And for the first time since the 2020-2021 season, we saw Eriksson Ek's numbers take a bit of a dip. He had incremental improvements for 4 straight seasons in basically every aspect, but limited to just 46 games this past year. We saw all of those numbers come down a little bit. Now, I will say that Eriksson Ek still had an 82-game pace that was pretty good, but all told, Eriksson Ek's 2024-2025 season saw him play in 46 games. It saw him record 14 goals, 15 assists, 29 total points, and all three of those numbers are the fewest that Eriksson Ek has had in a season since 2020-2021. He was a +9. He had a shooting percentage of 10% this past season. And if you look at some of the other numbers as well, he averaged 19 minutes, 45 seconds of time per night on the ice, which was still pretty high, but it was a little bit of a dip from last season. And, some of the peripheral numbers as well, still pretty close to his career norms, just not quite at the same level that we have come to expect from Eriksson Ek over the course of his career. He just has always been this guy that, has incremental improvements like clockwork in key areas. He had 140 shots on goal in the 46 games, had 5 power play goals, had 10 power play points, and his face-off percentage was at 47.1%, which was almost a 3% drop from where he was at last year. He had 36 blocks, 82 hits in 46 games. He did also receive some Selke trophy votes as well. Finished in 24th in the Selke trophy race. Now, as far as the other analytics go, Eriksson Ek had a Corsi for percentage in all situations of 53.2%. In 5-on-5 play, he was at 53.6, which was actually a career high amongst his previous seasons. And you look at some of the defensive production, his defensive point shares, despite playing in just the 46 games, his defensive point shares was at 1.4. So still solid defensively, as we have come to know. However, his 3.3 total point shares, the lowest mark he's had in a season since 2019-2020. He had a 1.8 offensive point shares and a 1.4 defensive point shares. Now, what led to some of this dip in his production? Well, Eriksson Ek dealt with a couple of different injuries. He dealt with a lower body injury. He also dealt with a core muscle injury that really robbed him of the production that we've come to see. He was a 30-goal scorer for the first time last year, and it looks like we were getting, to the top of the mountain as far as what Joel Eriksson Ek can provide over the course of a season. But as far as the goal scoring goes, he went through a little bit of a lull, had one goal in November. He started off pretty well with 4 goals in the first month of the season, but then he started to build up some injuries, barely played in the month of December. He came back in January and was pretty good. He had 4 goals there. Was kind of cold throughout the month of February. Played a few games, then came back from the Four Nations face-off and ended up missing almost a full month of the season after that. And then he came back against the San Jose Sharks on April 9th and had the 4-goal game where he looked fantastic. And he scored a goal in the game against the Anaheim Ducks. So he had 5 goals in the final 4 games of the season. In the postseason, he tallied 3 assists and 19 shots on goal, but was not able to light the lamp in any of the postseason games. So Eriksson Ek dealt with the core muscle injury, which, as we saw with Marcus Foligno, it robbed a lot of what Eriksson Ek does. I'm sure it had an impact on his faceoff numbers. Could you imagine with an abdominal injury trying to crouch down to handle a faceoff? I can't, which begs the question of, like, if these guys are to the point that they're like majorly injured and are just not able to function, why are they in the game? Why are they playing at that point? So for Eriksson Ek, it brings up a really interesting question that we're going to dive into here as the rest of the show unfolds. Like, are we getting to the point where we're starting to get concerned about the injuries that are piling up? His play style is kind of conducive to the abuse that he takes on the ice. He, in the 2021-2022 season, he, right down at the end of the year, he had a shot hit him in the leg, and or actually that was the 2022-2023 season, excuse me. He had a shot that hit him in the leg in the last few games of the season. It was against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it broke his leg. Now that's coming off of a shot block, so there's not a lot you can do about that. It's a simple matter of get out of the way, I guess is the best way to put it. But he missed the final bit of the regular season, the final few games of the regular season. Last game played was April 6th. He came back in the 3rd game against Dallas, played 19 seconds, and was out. So the Wild missed him in that series because obviously they lost to the Stars. I think the Stars were the better team at the end of the day, but I think the Wild certainly could have won that series. So that is, I don't consider that a freak. I consider that a freak injury. I don't consider that something, I guess, chronic and concerning. And the previous 3 seasons before this year, he had played 77, 78, and 77 games. Is he going to miss a couple of games here or there? Yeah, that's with the physicality that he plays with the abuse that he takes from other players, you're bound to get a little banged up throughout the course of the season. If you miss 5 or fewer games, that's not a huge deal. When you start to get to the point that you miss 10, 20, then we're going to have some problems. He has had a couple of seasons. Now, back when he was still kind of a 4th line, bottom 6 player, back in 2018, 2019, he played 58 games. We're not as worried about that. But 2019, 2020, played 62 games. And this past season especially, like that core issue, we just have seen what that has led to for some other Minnesota Wild players. Marcus Foligno had it so bad that he had to have his operated on twice. So if Eriksson Ek can get that fixed, it's going to go a long way towards getting him back to where we have come to know him over the last few seasons. Now, what does this do for his grade? Well, we'll take a look at the numbers. We'll see what letter grade Joel Eriksson Ek gets for this past season. We'll discuss that plus plenty more as we continue to evaluate Joel Eriksson Ek's 2024-2025 as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. One of my favorite features about Monarch Money is the ability to get rid of all of the apps. The credit card apps, the finance apps, the banking apps. Monarch Money keeps track of everything in one easy place. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. We are your team each and every day as well. And we thank you for subscribing to Locked On Wild on YouTube. If you have not already, make sure that you do so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We will have, I'm sure, more news to discuss as we get closer and closer to the start of the season. So if you want to be on the inside, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Wild. All right, let's go through the grading system and Joel Eriksson Ek's numbers for this past year as well. So just for a refresher, we are grading on a scale that awards 100 total points. 5 different categories. You've got games played and availability, on-ice impact, importance to team and role, consistency in clutch, and growth, intangibles, and storylines. So for Joel Eriksson Ek, this past season obviously was the lowest amount of games that he's played in a minute. He ended up playing in total 46 games. So Eriksson Ek gets 5 out of 20 for games played. Now, if this was just one, if this was the situation like he had a few seasons ago where he took the slap shot, broke his leg, I'd probably be a little more lenient. But it was 2 different injuries that robbed him of games throughout the course of the season. He had the stretch that he missed from December 6th. He was placed on injured reserve on December 6th. He came back December 29th. He was put on injured reserve on February 25th. He was activated on April 9th. So you got 2 different stretches of games that he missed, which is why I'm not going lenient on the games missed for this season. As far as on-ice impact goes, Eriksson Ek was a .63 points per game as far as production goes, which makes him 10 out of 15 on the production scale. Again, 0.3 points per game or fewer is 2 points. 0.3 to 0.49 is 5. 0.5 to 0.74 is 10. And 0.75 or above is 15 out of 15. So Eriksson Ek gets 10 out of 15 there. As far as the analytics go, his analytic numbers were all in pretty good shape. The Corsi 4 numbers were good. The expected goals for was in good shape as well. He was in positive territory there. He also was, again, key contributor, power play, and penalty kill. So he gets the full 15 out of 15 there. which means that he goes 25 out of 30 as far as category number 2 goes, which is on-ice impact. For number 3, importance to team and role, he's a consistent top 6 contributor. As it currently stands, he's one of the 2 best centers on the team. So he consistently plays in the top 6. Back when he was kind of working into that role, he was the third line center, but he's worked his way into a top 6 spot. So he gets 15 out of 20 for importance to team and role. Consistency and clutch. I went here with 9 out of 15 for the possible points offered because there were some hot and cold streaks, and the 3 total points in 6 playoff games, I factored that in as well. So he gets a 9 out of 15 for consistency and clutch. As far as the growth and intangibles go, I went with a 7 here because there was a reduction in scoring. Still, once he came back, he was able to kind of get back to where he was before, but he did have a couple of lulls, and he's in a pretty important spot for this Minnesota Wild team. So if you're not getting production, then that's hurting things a little bit. So I went 7 out of 15 there, which all told gives Joel Eriksson Ek a 61 out of 100. And on our scale, 61 out of 100, he's in the solid but replaceable category. And I think, at least from what we have seen, I think I'm willing to at least kind of give this a slight pass based off of the injury. As long as it gets cleaned up. Like, if he doesn't have a setback from it, like Marcus Foligno did, then once it got cleaned up, once it got fixed, Marcus Foligno came back and he was just fine. If Eriksson Ek is able to get it surgically fixed, then he should be good to go. But with Joel Eriksson Ek, his play style always is going to warrant being kind of banged up. And you hear this every season is Joel Eriksson Ek is dealing with a little something, or he has been dealing with something for the last 5 or 6 games. He just is always going to be somebody that gets beat up during the course of the season. For the first time in a while, the Wild had him as close to fully healthy as he's been, because of the fact that he had the time off that he did. It didn't amount to a playoff series win, though, but it did still lead to him, looking the part when he came back into the lineup. So I don't think I'm going to call for Eriksson Ek to be moved off the team or anything like that. It is just going to be, it's a situation where he just needs to get back to fully healthy. Once he does, he can get back to being the Ek that we know. So if it's fixed, it's fixed. And his grade will obviously be much higher than it has been this season. Now, the thing that I'm interested about, and for the everydayers, we talked about this with Nico Sturm, the face-off thing just is baffling to me. Like, I heard Michael Russo and Anthony LaPanta talking about this on Worst Seats in the House like a month or two ago. I just, for the life of me, and this is probably a good example as to just how variable the art of the face-off is, it is baffling to me how a guy like Joel Eriksson Ek has never been a 50% face-off winner at the NHL level. Not once. The closest he came was last year in a career high in attempts, 49.7. That's the closest he has come to being a 50% face-off winner. But I think it shows you that face-offs are a variable statistic. Depends entirely on who you are matched up against. You may have a favorable matchup going into the face-off, but then somebody jumps, gets knocked off the circle, and all of a sudden what should have been a face-off win for you goes to a face-off win for the other team. There just are a lot of different variables that come into play for the art of the face-off. Now, I will say Eriksson Ek has been above 50% every season of his career that he's been a regular player on the power play. As far as the penalty kill goes, he has been above 40% 3 times. So that is certainly an area that can be improved upon. And maybe Nico Sturm being like a student of the art of the face-off, maybe having him on the roster can help with that. Because all of the things that have gone wrong and have led to the penalty kill being an issue, winning face-offs is at or near the top of the list. So a bit of a down year for Joel Eriksson Ek, but he certainly has the chance to bounce back and get back in the solid column come next season. Now, I want to finish the show by taking a look at his contract, because Joel Eriksson Ek's contract is widely considered one of the biggest bargains in the NHL. Is he still generating just a massive surplus of value? We'll take a look at that, as well as a Minnesota Wild player that actually made the list as far as top 10 most valuable contracts in the NHL goes. All that on the way as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. And once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. So Joel Eriksson Ek is currently navigating through a contract that he signed a few years ago, an 8-year, $42 million contract that he signed going into the 2020-2021 season. Eriksson Ek has since then become one of the bigger bargains in the NHL based on his production up until this most recent season. He had been every year of the deal. He'd been 23 goals or more, 49 points or more, and a guy that just played a ton of games. The Athletic has him based off the forecast that he had. Now, not because of the games that he played in particular, but based off of the production, the projection that he had he played a full season, he generated $2.5 million in surplus value. So he's being paid as a $5.3 million player. He has a market value of $7.8 million as a center. If he would have played in the full 82, he would have been at a 25 goal, 25 assists, so 50 total points. He would have been at a 25 goal, 50 point pace. If you look at his numbers for the last few seasons, that would be right on par with the goals. It'd be a slight dip in goals and a slight dip in assists. But I think that can be explained by the fact that it's a little more difficult to shoot a puck effectively when your midsection is all torn up. So the dip is understandable, and he was 28 this past season. He will turn 29 he'll turn 29 on January 29th. So he'll be 28 going into the season. About, a third of the way through the season, he will turn 29. So he's still on the right side of 30. He still has plenty of tread on the tires. It's just a matter of making sure that the appropriate amount of time is taken to heal everything up. So Eriksson Ek's contract, I think, continues to be a major bargain. And as far as where he should be put in the lineup, I think on a playoff team, I think he would probably be a 2 or a 2B center. I used this analogy with Alex yesterday for the everydayers. You heard me mention this. On a team like the Florida Panthers, Alexander Barkov, I think, is a souped-up version of Joel Eriksson Ek. Joel Eriksson Ek is a very talented player. I think Alexander Barkov is kind of a mutant version of Joel Eriksson Ek. And you look at what the rest of that Panthers team looks like as far as depth down the middle. You've got Sam Bennett on line 2. Bennett is a far better scorer, but I think Joel Eriksson Ek has the nose defensively there. So I think he would slot in above Anton Lindell if he was on the Panthers roster. He'd slot in as a third-line center, but on a team that is as deep as the Panthers are, there's nothing wrong with that. He's capable of playing a top 6 role, certainly. But I think if you put a fully optimized lineup together and you have 2 centers that are bona fide, a 1C and a bona fide 2C, he probably ends up being a third center that is capable of playing higher in the lineup. So this is just going to be an ongoing quest for this Minnesota Wild roster as to try to figure out, try to properly line that depth up. This is where Danila Yurov can help. We've talked about the potential for him to really bolster that top 6. But Joel Eriksson Ek is one of those players that just he does a lot of different things. He fills a lot of different roles. And he's a player that I think if you polled the NHL, I think a wide majority of the teams that know what they're doing would say, I would absolutely take a guy like that on my roster. Because he's a do whatever is necessary type of get your hands dirty, really dig in. He is that type of player for this Minnesota Wild team, and he's somebody that just has a knack for finding a way to get under the skin of the opponents. He excels at it. He excels at flustering people and using that intensity, that bulldog mentality to get in the heads of his opponents and cause them to make mistakes. So a down year for Joel Eriksson Ek, for sure. The production was still mostly on pace, but I think if he is fully healthy going into the season, he can get back closer to where he had been the last few years as far as production and on-ice productivity goes. So let us know in the chat what you think Joel Eriksson Ek's grade should be. And again, our grading scale is a little tilted because 90 to 100% is considered an A+. So Joel Eriksson Ek gets a C, 60 to 69. He gets a C grade. Let us know in the comments what you think Joel Eriksson Ek's letter grade should be. Are you thinking C? Are you thinking higher? And do you think he can rebound after an injury-shortened season here this year? Matt Boldy, by the way, as far as top 10 best value contracts go, Matt Boldy slotted in at number 9 with his 7x7 that he continues to generate surplus value on. So that's a deal that has continued to look better and better for the Minnesota Wild as Boldy has aged into it. And as he continues to age into it, it's just going to continue to look better and better. You know, if he gets himself towards a 40-goal production, 35 goals, 40, upwards of that, it's going to continue to look better and better, kind of like that Joel Eriksson Ek contract is as well. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.